Okay, so welcome everybody to our talk on extending governance for the enterprise with Azure Purview. We thought it was especially topical given that Purview has had a couple of years now to bed in, and Microsoft are really moving the roadmap forward aggressively, and there's a lot of great new features that we've seen over the last 12 months. And it's one of these scenarios now where it's becoming enterprise ready. And so we wanted to give you a talk today, talk about some of the new features, some of the ways that we think about Purview, some of the integration points in the enterprise, and some things that you may, if you've used Purview, not even be aware that it can do, what its capabilities are. So I will move on to the next slide and start by introducing myself and Pablo. So I'm Richard Conway. I'm a retired Azure MVP. I've been an Azure MVP for the last 10 years. A fantastic Microsoft program, enjoyed every minute of it. I'm still what's called a Microsoft Regional Director, which I really enjoy as well. And I'm the founder of a company called ElasticCloud. And I will pass over to Pablo now. Oh, we've got some mute issues.
Sorry, I was.
No worries. It catches the best of us.
Yeah, with everyone working remotely, is what happens. So let me go again. So my name is Pablo. I'm the technical lead for insurance, banking, and capital markets in ElasticCloud. This is something new for me, but it's something very recent. But basically, I have been working with ElasticCloud for the last 4 years. I have been working with Azure Purview for the last year and a half. So since before it was GA.
Fantastic. And just a little bit about us. We are a 7 times Microsoft Azure Gold partner. You can see that we love creating communities. So we've got a whole heap of communities which we run out of the UK. We also contribute to education programs that Microsoft have created. So we love upskilling people and helping them learn. We love committing to open source. So lots of these projects that you'll see here actually form the backbone for the data platform in Azure. Just to disrupt any illusions that some of you might have, none of it's original, but it is original open source. So tools like Azure Databricks and Synapse Analytics, they're all built on Spark, and same with Parquet and others, but they're built by fantastic communities of people, and we've been privileged to be able to contribute to them. So we've got a growing number of people across different offices in London, Notts, Brazil, and Spain. Left off the list is India, and of course India is very topical because DPS Days is an Indian conference. So we have a growing office in India now with over 50 people in Bangalore, and great presence to welcome to our family. Okay, let's crack on.
So let's start with data governance. That's the root of why Purview was created. So data governance is very important in this new age of data. With all the government creating new legislations related to processes around data, GDPR, the one that I'm more familiar with, but there is legislation all around the world related to data processes. So this is a very important topic, and every big company wants to do something with data governance. The problem until now is that there was no first-party tool. Everything was third-party, and every third-party tool was different and had a different definition of data governance. So Microsoft has tried with Purview to take that space and standardize it for Azure. But let's start with what is data governance. So data governance is a change in the organizational state and cultural shift. So it has different pillars if you do some digging online, you will see that there is a lot of different definitions. But basically, is you need to combine data management, stakeholders, and tools to do that. So if I go to the different slides, so you will see in a lot of places this diagram. So people or the different personas, the processes that are involved in those, and the tools and technologies involved. So these are the three main pillars that you need to involve when you are doing data governance. So some different parts that are normally associated with data governance are understanding the data state. So this is data cataloging and data discovery. This is where you understand your data and you let everyone in an organization see what data you have. So you stop having data silos. You start sharing and democratizing the data. Data quality and integrity. So you make sure that the data that you have is is usable and it doesn't have any issues or any gaps in there. Access management and security controls, those are very related. So what is actually the process to grant someone access to the data? Is everyone that should have access to the data? So is everyone that has access to the data people that should have access to the data? So think about data with personal information like emails, bank accounts, etc. So you shouldn't access that data. So this is about managing that. Data policy definition and compliance. So this is, for example, GDPR. I have a right to be forgotten, so I don't want my information to be in this company anymore. What's actually the process for it to be deleted or for the information not be anymore in the company? Roles and processes, like going back to personas, like what are the different actors involved in all these processes, who owns the data, who needs to actually approve these processes. So it's the main three pillars are this, but it's get complicated when you start thinking about it. So some questions around data. So who are the data stakeholders within an organization? Who consumes data? Who produces data? Who transforms it? So all this is related to those three pillars. Who, like people, what, like the type of data, the technologies that you have, where it is stored, and processes, like what's the actual processes of ingesting the data, making sure that people don't have access to the personal information of others unless they have the clearance for doing that. So do people in the organization know how to handle data? And that's also really important. This is going back to technologies. So is data leaving my organization, my organizational boundary? All these are questions related to all those pillars, like security, those processes. So a lot of questions, a lot of different takes on what data governance is. You will see that Microsoft Purview, once we talk about the capabilities of Microsoft Purview, have its own take. It will keep growing. The idea is that Microsoft Purview is going to be the one-stop solution for data governance in Azure. But for now, they have started with some of those pillars. They are going to continue working on those. So here,
I was wondering, Pablo. I'm looking at these questions, and it feels like that there will be a huge impact on existing policy for organizations that want to introduce data governance. They might be used to doing things in a certain way, but to truly govern their data and make it secure and understand who their consumers are, they'll have to maybe change behaviors, and that might enable like a change in the use of Active Directory, change in the use of Azure policy. How do you think, what advice would you give to a new organization that was starting this vanilla and had to answer these questions and bring in all of the organizational entities and disrupt them in the way that they've already built things?
So if they have their own processes, one of the good things about Purview is that it's a layer on top of what you have. So even if you start setting it up for a small part of the business, as maybe one of the business units you want to start like doing a test of these processes, it won't disrupt the rest. So it's something that you put on top of your processes. It's scalable. It's very easy to increase the scanning capabilities to more resources and more data and start embedding those processes. So it isn't you don't need to stop doing what you are doing and just move to Purview. You can go one step at a time. So set up Purview as the data catalog and solution, and then use the data catalog and the classifications or the access policies to start granting consent, and then move those processes more and more to a more like cloud first approach. That would be more or less the process. So Purview is still growing. So a lot of the processes right now might be more complicated than they should, but the so if you had seen how it has evolved in this last year, you will see that it has changed a lot. It's now much simpler to use. They are changing a lot of the capabilities. I will show later, like some of the, like how they are releasing updates every week, every month. So it's changing a lot, and it's not something that you just need to disrupt your process. You can just give it a go if it works for your company and the processes that you have, because some companies have simpler process than others. So if your process is really complex and you have your own tools built for it, maybe it's not for you and you only want the data cataloging capabilities, you can have that. You don't need to take everything.
That's good to know.
Yeah, so an example on, just continue with these examples, just to give an example on GDPR. So the General Protection Regulation has some questions that when someone raises that we need to have a process related to GDPR, or we need to have an answer to the GDPR legislation. So you might have you need to think about this pillar. So what is the current GDPR process? Or what is the process that we want to have with GDPR? Who triggers that process? Who needs to take actions during that process? What action needs to be taken? And where? Like, do we need to delete this data from this database? So how are we going to do this deletion? How long do we store the data? So all these are questions that you need to start answering when you look at some specifics. Like, how do we make sure that it has completed successfully? So we don't want for someone to audit our database in the follow-up years and find out that we actually were not compliant. So how do we actually monitor these processes to make sure that they are being carried successfully? So this is all related to the tools and processes. So there is a lot of questions that needs to be answered to make sure that everything is working as it should. But so it doesn't, as Richard was mentioning, it doesn't, in his question, it doesn't need to be all in right now. So you need to have an answer for this, but you can start building these answers for specific processes. Like maybe you have an answer for GDPR right now, but you want to have it as part of a more general strategy. But you don't need to do everything in one go. You can just go step by step. Maybe you start by having the data catalog and knowing which data is where, so that shows you where you need to take action. But so, for example, if we know that some data sets have information related to people, you can see that in Purview itself, and then you could know where you need to take action. That's might be the first step to start introducing Purview into the process. So we have talked a lot about Purview. So key drivers for governance. So lots of compliance to adhere to people's data matter, and we need to respect the rights. More and more. We are seeing a lot of government bodies adding more laws related to it. Like fines can be large, fines can be mitigated by keeping good processes and proper records. And then there is the democratizing the data and making the data available to all. So this is why we want to do data governance in a proper way. So this is to show a bit how the modern cloud data warehouse works. So in Azure, this is the standard pattern. So we in Rasta Cloud use this pattern every time we need to do anything related to data. This is the standard pattern as specified. So if you look at the architecture center from Microsoft, you will find this pattern or a variation of this pattern, but it's basically the same. So you have the speed layer and batch layer, and you have the storage areas, that is the blob storage, SQL DW, Cosmos DB, depending on what data you are storing, and the different layers where you are transforming the data. You have like reporting processes and machine learning processes to use that data. So dropping Purview here would put Purview in a layer here of its own, and it will integrate with all this. It will basically show you this picture, but with the data. So it will show there is a data set here that is being loaded into the SQL DW. And this data set is being used in this report. And you will see all the process and the transformations that that data is going through. So Purview and data governance is not changing this, it's just adding to it. So let me continue. So what is Microsoft Purview? So we have been talking a lot about Purview. So this is the definition from Microsoft. So Purview provides a unified data governance solution to help manage and govern your on-premise, multi-cloud, and software as a service data. I mean, it goes on, but basically these are the main pillars that Purview has right now. So data catalog and discovery, automated scanning of quite a few resource types, glossary and classification, so you can tag those data sets with their meaning or some like security classifications and things like that. So is this data confidential? Is this data set confidential? Is this column confidential? That kind of information. You also get some insights into the data. So where are my data sets? How many data sets I actually have in the data lake, in the landing area versus in the data lake in the curated area? Maybe I have a lot of data sets that are actually not being used. So this kind of insights you can start getting through Purview. I put here at the bottom data sharing and access policies that are in preview. So this is Microsoft is extending its offering a lot, and as I mentioned, it's want to be the unified data governance solution. So Microsoft is adding a lot. This is now in preview, but it will be GA in a future. So let me jump now that we are here. So one more slide. Let me go back to this one. Let me jump to Purview just to show a bit of how Purview looks for everyone that hasn't had a look at it. So this is a demo instance that we have created. So this is the home page. You can see the different sections here. Let me show it. So you have the data catalog, data map, data share, data state insights, data policies, and management. So here you have the data catalog. So if I go into the data catalog, I can see here by collections, by source type. So if I click in this collection, I will see now all the data sets that I have scanned, and I can, let me click on one of these data sets. So this data set is customer data set. You can see it's automatically, all this has been done automatically with scans. So it automatically has classified this data set as having email address, person's name, and US phone numbers. You can click in, you have some properties that are picked automatically. So creation time, modified time. You have here the qualified name that is a unique identifier, but is also related to the actual physical location of the data. So you can see this is an SMS SQL connection string, but like server, database, schema, and table. So this is the format for this. And you can also go to the schema of the data and see which columns they have, the data types, the email addresses, and you can, so for example, if the columns have sensitive labeling, it will also be big here. So if you are specifying that the email address or the names are confidential, you will get here a sensitive labeling of this being confidential, and that will be translated to the actual dataset. And the dataset itself will show here as confidential. And you also have the glossary terms that you can apply to this column. So you might have like a glossary for the company name and any other dataset that is like have the same column, like the same glossary applied to it. You can navigate through those. You have also here contacts. You can assign experts or owners. This also drives some of the processes. So you can see request access here that is now off because we don't have any self-service. But if you had a self-service for that, it will be here. Something that I wanted to show is this release notes and updates. You can see there is quite a lot of releases. You can go down quite a lot, but you can see August, July, May. So there is a release nearly every month, a couple of releases that improve Purview. So Purview is improving quite fast. The other part is this data map. So this data map is also quite interesting because it shows you how your data is in Azure itself. So you can see here, I am scanning now this database and this storage, this data lake. And if you had a very complex data state with multiple storage accounts and multiple SQL databases, maybe even in multiple subscriptions, you can show this here. And this is something that you will need to have your own diagram somewhere else to show, but this is shown automatically by the act of adding the register. Just to show a bit of all the capabilities that Purview has right now. So you can see data lake, Cosmos DB, ADX, databases, Cassandra. So Cassandra is in preview, DB2, like Hive and HDFS, MongoDB. Like you have quite a few. They are adding a lot. You have here AWS. You don't have only Azure resources. Microsoft Purview is trying to extend to other clouds and to whatever the users are using in the cloud. So it will keep growing. One of the topics we are going to touch is how you can actually build your own scan capabilities. So if you have a source that isn't supported here and you actually want to use Purview, how you can do that. So that's as an introduction to Purview. Purview has a lot of more capabilities. So these insights shows you like what number of datasets are curated or partially curated. You can see that I have mostly not curated because I haven't really assigned any glossaries or anything, like with sensitivity, classifications, out of date. So it tells you a lot of information once you start actually in the day-to-day working with it. It lets you how well you are doing in this process of governing your data. But for now, this is out of the scope. It's just to show a bit of what it's doing. So there is a data share and data policy, access policy that are in preview. They are also quite in an interesting direction from Purview. So to show how they are more and more integrating with the actual processes of governing the data, being able to self-serve your like you have sharing data. You can share data from Purview itself, and you can also like have a consent process to allow other users to get access to the data. But let's go back to the presentation. So how can we extend the capabilities of Purview? So if we want to do something that is outside of the scope of those scans, or maybe we have some business process that is not completely integrated with Purview. How can we trigger that process from Purview itself? So there are different ways, mainly these two Atlas APIs and Kafka topics that they define. But some example of what you can do is build custom scanners, like enforce specific tagging processes or other processes. So if you want to enforce some data sets to have some sensitivity classification, on the other way around, you want to enforce like some access controls based on the tagging in Purview. Those are things that you can do from here, or text actions based on changes into Purview. So, for example, if I assign a new owner in Purview, how can that reflect into the actual data set? No, so those are the kind of changes. This also can be customized. So the idea is that you can apply your own processes here, whatever they are. So let's go to the first one, the Atlas API. So the Atlas APIs, so Microsoft Purview is based on Apache Atlas. So Apache Atlas is a tool from the Apache Foundation that is a set of governance services on metadata management tools. If you look in the internet and see images, you will see that they look similar to Purview, but also a bit different. It's because in the origin, like the ideas and the concepts behind Apache Atlas were used to when Microsoft was thinking about developing their tool, and they also made use of the same strategy for the Atlas APIs. So that's why Microsoft exposes a set of Atlas APIs that you can use to interact with all the type model and the entities that are in Purview. So here I have put some links. So you have different libraries so you don't need to use the REST APIs directly. So you have PyApache Atlas is actually a very good one because it has an abstraction on the APIs themselves with their own types. But if you don't want to use it and you want to use a Microsoft solution, you have the Microsoft SDKs where you can access the APIs from code directly. The only thing is that you will need to build the payloads yourself rather than using the abstraction. There is also some documentation. So let me go over some of this. So this is the PyApache Atlas. You have here the whole library. You can see it's in pip, so it's very easy to use. This is the library I'm going to be using in the examples I have, because as I mentioned, like it's very simple to set up, and you can see you can create an Atlas entity with its own type. So it has this kind of abstraction that is very nice to start working on it. It's also true that the new features from Purview aren't here normally at first. So you will need to do a pull request. Since this is open source, you can always do that and add the capability yourself, or wait for the developers to add it after it has been released. But so if you look at this, like some of the people that are working here on the commits are from Microsoft themselves. So it's you can see used by Microsoft themselves in some of their projects. So it's a good tool to use. And it also have here in the samples a lot of examples of how to do what I'm going to show is a very simple example, but you can go here and see how they are actually using it. And sometimes they have like the comments here are very good. They show you some tricks about how how the model is doing some of the things. So it is a very good resource to have if you actually want to go deep into Purview and the type model. The other option is the Azure SDK for Python or for .NET. You have all the options from Microsoft. So this is the Azure Purview catalog, but you have a lot of different options. So let me continue on those. So actually, let me go to the example. So here I have an example that I created to to go over it, so you can see I'm using PyApache Atlas. So if I come here, click Browse Asset, and go by source type, you can see we have assets in the data lake, SQL database, SQL Server, and a storage account. So let me run this first one. So this first part will create a client and use my Azure CLI credentials. So this imports of the libraries, creates the clients, and now here I can start using the clients. So this entity, let me actually run it. So if I go, so you can see this has read this entity. You have here entities, type name, Azure Agent to path. You have all the information here. So let's actually look for this one. This is the sample classification.json. So we can just go to Purview itself, or maybe we can go here and just open it. Yeah, sample classification.json. So this is the data set, and this is how it is represented in the actual API. So internally to Purview, this is the representation of all this information that you are seeing in the interface. So here you have like the qualified name replicated from is file. So all this section for attributes is extra information that you have about the dataset and serve, and then you have basic information like where did this dataset come from. So this came from one of the scans that we created, and this is a scan that actually generated this file and generated the changes. So all this information is here for us to consume it in other processes. So it's not only here in the UI, but you can actually access all the information. Same with the schema. So I opened the wrong one, but here I didn't go into details, but you have all these relationships and attach a schema, and you can get access to all the information that you need. So this UID, so let me explain a bit of this UID, just because this is a main driver for Purview. So Purview uses a UID system where everything has a UID. It also has another identifier that is the qualified name and the type that also is unique, and you can use it to make searches. But the main thing is the UID. So for example, how did I get this UID? So if you look at the search bar, you see here entity, and this is actually Purview itself under the hood. So if you look at the console, you will see all these calls to the same APIs, but you can see here UID HP something. So you can get the UID from here, for example, because Purview hides the UID from the UI itself, just to not show that whole ID, but you can get it from the URL. So this is actually how I did it. So I searched for this. I wanted to get more information, so I copied the UID into this script and just run the get entity. But I could also have done, you can see here, I could also have done the get entity by qualified name and type name. So here, qualified name and type name. So I could also have used that. That information is here, type name is here, qualified name is here. So let's keep going. Let's do some more interesting things. So first is one of the main drivers, as I mentioned, is type name. So let's create our own type. So you have type definitions here. Let's create this type. Let's go back here. So you can see success. So this has now created our own demo table type. You can see, let's go over it. So this demo table has the name of the type is demo table. The name of the service this table belongs to is demo service. And the type will have 3 columns. Column 1, column 2, and column 3. And column 1 is actually is not optional, and column 2 and column 3 are optional. These super types is because you can have same as with an object-oriented model. So you can inherit from other objects. So this is the super type. So this is basically the parent of the table. So the parent is a data set. So let's now try to create an entity. So this one will fail. And this is just to show you a bit of the errors. So you can see I tried to create this. I get an Atlas exception. And it says invalid instance creation. You need the demo table.column1 attribute. So as I mentioned, this one is not optional. So let's now run this one now with value. And this has created it. So if I go back to the data catalog, click here and by source type, you will see custom source type. Now this is my demo service. So Azure Data Lake Storage N2 is a service, SQL database is a service. Now we have our own custom service, and this is the table that we have just created. So this table, most of the information is empty because I didn't fill it. We could actually click edit and update information here. And then this will be shown once we query it, it will be shown. For simplicity, let's not do that, but you can see properties. Column 1 is value 1, column 2 is 5, and we can show empty, and we can see column 3 is empty. Description, display name, etc. All these are empty here. But those are information that we can also provide. One of the differences is that this one doesn't have an schema. So this type, because this inherits from dataset, and we haven't created anything, this doesn't have an schema. So in the next example, let's actually do that. So let's create our own custom type now, but it will inherit for two places. It will inherit from the demo table that we just created, and it will inherit also from the Azure SQL table. So Azure SQL table is one of these types that we have here. Click on any of these. So you can see this one has an schema, has the company name, the email address. So the one that we specified before. So we are making our own type that has the parent, this Azure SQL table. So we will have the same capabilities as an Azure table. So we will be able to provide the schema. We will have all these properties in our object to provide. We will have we will be able to provide a related schema, etc. So for now, let's keep it simple. I have created the type here that is from SQL table and demo table, and let's now create another type. So this should have created the type. Let's go to Purview and let's just see it. Yeah, you can see now I have another one here that is this one, and you can see now this one has a schema, but it's empty because we haven't created the schema. But now it shows here as one of the tabs that we can have. So the next step we are going to do is actually so let's create the column to add to the schema. Table. Sorry, I actually need to retrieve this. So you can see that I didn't run this. I was running too fast. So if I come here to table, you can see one of the things that you need to do is to add these relationships. So this is a column, and we have the table, and we need to make sure they are related. So for that, one of the things. So let me see. I actually have the example here to show it. So you can see the way this looks is we have no. So the way this looks, this Atlas entity that we're getting for the column looks is we have the type name that is SQL column. So this is here. We have the attributes that is the data type that is here. We have the name, qualified name. And then we have relationship attributes. So this relationship attributes is this add relationship, and this means like this table attribute that is what is adding the relationship. What does it contain? So you need to actually provide this UID, so the identifier of the service, to be able to define that that relationship. That's why I retrieve the UID here, because before we were just having a placeholder. So this get UID that we're using here is a placeholder. So when you upload it, it will generate a unique UID inside Purview. And here we are retrieving that unique UID to be able to use it in the relationship. So now if I run this, it will have generated here the column. So some column, type a string. So this is an example that you can do. So all this, because this is code and this is a script, you can automate it based on other processes. So something that we have done is we have gone to databases that are not supported in Purview, and we have done some selects to and describes to understand the tables, and we have used these APIs to put that information back into Purview. That's just an example of how you can start surfacing and making your own scans very easily with these capabilities. So something else that you can do is lineage. Let's go over it. So just to show you how this looks, so you can see lineage. We are creating a process. There are examples for all this on this page here, the one for recruit. So you can see entity and lineage, relationships, entity classification, type with a schema. So you can find all these examples here. So if you want to go into more details, my suggestion would be come here and start running these examples and just understand, like, depending on your use case, one of these examples might fit there, and that's probably the best way of doing this. But let's run this atlas process, upload the lineage. Okay, so now we have the the process here. If I go now to lineage and refresh it, it will show me this lineage. So this lineage represents that my custom SQL table came from this demo table. And the idea is, for example, if you have a ADF where you are making a copy activity, so this will be the source of the copy and this will be the target of the copy. So you can start seeing this data came from here and went to this target. And you can have a lot of hubs. So for example, if you have multiple tables that you are joining, this will show two joins in a data flow. This will show the two joins here, the process is the data flow, and this is the target. And then you might have a Power BI report that will show here as another step. So this start increasing, and this makes it very easy to track, like, where your data came from, where it goes to, who you need to ask access if you want to do more with this data, for example. So these are different use cases that you can have. So this is mostly the Atlas APIs. You can go very deep with Atlas APIs. So Purview and Atlas have its own type system, so you can go into that type system. I didn't want to go very deep, but you can see we have created our own type definitions here with the super types. This is the basics of the type system.
This is really interesting, Pablo. That was going to be one of my questions when I saw this. How the code that you've just written, how portable would that be if an organization then decided that they were going to use Apache Atlas as opposed to Purview directly? Would you need to make significant changes to the code that you've written for custom types, or how would that be?
No. So this PyApache Atlas library is generic. So it has Purview in itself, but so you can see a Python SDK for Azure Purview and Apache Atlas. So this is supposed to be able to integrate both. And if you look at the so the Microsoft documentation is here for the Microsoft Purview REST APIs, but you have also the, let me actually look here for the APIs, like here the REST APIs, and you have the documentation, and you can actually cross-reference this with the other, and it's basically the same API. There might be some minor difference, like some of these endpoints might not be available in Purview right now, but this is part of what they are extending. So if you look at the let me see if I can find it, but there was here you can see Microsoft Purview is now upgraded to Apache Atlas 2.2. So it's basically tracking the Apache Atlas API and the versions of the Apache Atlas.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it's a very cool ecosystem. So there are a lot of tools that and Microsoft is building a lot of tools that will be useful for both sides. So one of the examples I have here that I wanted to show just as a reference is this Purview Databricks Lineage Accelerator. So this is actually an open source tool that Microsoft has created because you can see here that when you register something, Databricks is actually not in the list of sources yet. It's not yet in the list of sources. It will be added in the future. But in the meantime, Microsoft is providing this accelerator. This is basically Microsoft has gone and used these APIs and these same things that I just shown to build their own scan. So you can see how it works. So this will generate this when you have a notebook in Databricks. This will this is how they have built the architecture. So this is actually a very good example of how you could build your own scan capabilities. So
Very
you
cool.
can
Cool.
have the source. Yep.
I remember you worked on a version of this yourself, didn't you, using Spline in the early days?
Yeah. Before Microsoft provided this accelerator, we in Elastic Cloud working using Spline, that is an open source library for Linux that was there for quite a few years, but it was on its own. You needed to create your own databases and all that, and you need to stand up your own UI. So it was a bit complicated, but it was very easy to do basically something like this, where you have a Spline here, you get an Azure function that is receiving information from Spline and put that information into Apache Atlas, using Apache Atlas into Purview. It's it takes work to do, but it's something that can be done quite fast. So if you will have your own source that you understand and you have the tools to scan it, it's very easy to adapt it to Purview.
Got you.
The last thing to mention is the Event Hub. I'm going to go very fast on this one. So if you look at how the architecture from Purview looks, so the basic architecture from Purview is something like this. So you have the Purview here, you have managed resources, an Event Hub, and a storage account that they are used when they are doing their scans to interface with the rest of Azure and the different clouds. So you have here the integration runtime and the different data sources. But this event hub is managed by Purview, but is exposed to the users. And there is documentation. Having it open here. So there is documentation. Let me actually, I think, this one. I didn't open it before, but this is the event hubs and .NET Center receive as Kafka topics. So you have this documentation here about how to do it, and I actually had it listening here in the background. The Atlas entities consumer, and you can see all the operations that we have just been doing. They are here. So this is an entity create. And this is telling me that we have just created a process with this qualified name, this UID, and all the information. So for example, if I created this lineage, now I can trigger, based on this information, I could trigger a process that now does something related to the lineage, because now I know that the source and target are related by a process. Maybe I want to do something with that, and I want to say, oh, so now the security constraints of the source need to be applied to the target, and you can trigger a process based on that using this notification. So this is the notification topic from the Kafka, or the Event Hub actually, because this is in Azure, so this is using Event Hub. So you have here deletes also, you have classification. So most of the a lot of the things from Purview will go here, and you can basically start processes based on this. And you also have the other way around. So if you wanted to do the same operations that we did in Purview, you have another event hub that is Atlas hooks, and you can send events. So for example, if I wanted to delete all this, I could just send a couple of events to that hook, and it will get processed on its own. So it's another integration that Purview has. I think that's that's basically it. So different examples. that we have used it for. So we have actually used this for capture and auditing of all events in Purview. So one of the things that Purview lacks at the moment is a history view. So you cannot view like what are all those changes of a data source. With Event Hubs, it's very easy. You just need to capture those events, get the relevant information that you want to capture from Purview, and store it somewhere else. And then you have a history view of all the data. So if you have an audit process and you need to know, who added this person as owner, or when were these columns added to this data set, you can come here and you have now that history. Replaying Purview events is something that we have also done. So if you want to have more certainty about the history, you can use those that history that you have captured to replay it. Well, as I mentioned, react to events in Purview. So you can take those processes and now make something from it. So all these are examples that can be used. So actually, Apache themselves has. So if you look at the Atlas documentation high-level architecture, so you can see this is internal from Apache. So in Purview it looks a bit different, but it's mostly the same. So you can see this messaging Kafka is the event hub here in Purview, and they have their like UI, business taxonomy, and Ranger tag. This is Apache Ranger. That is another tool that Apache has. It basically integrates with this messaging system. So when there is a change in the tags in Purview, it automatically applies a policy in Hive or in HDFS. So this is an example of how Apache is using this kind of notification system and how anyone could use it, like in Purview itself. That's the end of the presentation. We want to open now to questions. So I don't know if Richard, you have some comments to make before going to questions.
So it's really, really interesting. I think that that being able to parallel this sort of graphical UI with a type system, so that you can have a code base that can have an effect that you can see, I think is great. And so long may these features keep coming.
Yeah, Microsoft has a lot of plans. So you will see much more features coming in the future. Much more sources, much more tighter integrations with access and processes. So we will see. It's exciting to see what Microsoft is planning with this.
Absolutely. Thanks, Pablo. Great talk. Thanks everyone for your attention.
Yeah, thank you everyone. Just ask us any question. There is going to be a chat for questions, probably. So please ask there any questions or just reach to us if you have any other questions and we can just have a chat.